Welcome back to another session within the CluedIn Insights. So we have Ben Jarvis with us today, CTO of Data and AI within Telefonica Tech. And today he just wants to give us a good overview of what it looks like when we're talking about bringing the business into the data supply chain. So hopefully we can get into that right now, Ben.
Cool. Thanks for that, Sam.
No worries.
Yeah, so as Samuel said, my name's Ben Jarvis and I'm CTO for Data and AI at Telefonica Tech UK. So I've been working for the organization for the last over the last 7 years, and in that time spent all of my time working with customers to get value from their investment in a data platform. So that's covering the technical implementation, so how we architect and deliver those solutions, but also working with them to embed them in the business and ensure that they're getting value from those solutions. So in today's session, we'll be talking about how we can align the outcomes that come from a data platform to the objectives of a business. And within this session, we'll be talking through a few different areas. So we'll start by looking at some of the current trends that we're seeing across the data and AI industry. We'll then dive into what is a data culture. So talk about how organizations can actually get to that level of maturity where they're using data to drive value from a business point of view. And then we'll dive into some other areas such as how we can apply product thinking to data and how we can actually get started and start to build out solutions within a data platform. So if we kick off by looking at some of the current trends. So we're seeing a number of different trends in the industry, and that's through speaking to our customers, but also looking at stuff that's coming from analysts such as Gartner and just the general views of people across the industry that we're talking to. And they fall into three different buckets. So the first is that everybody wants AI. So AI has obviously been a big trend over the last few years, and we're now at the point where organizations are disillusioned because they've run lots of POCs, but they're not getting those POCs into production. And they want to find some tangible AI use cases that can be productionized and deliver some kind of business value. The other side of it is execs want to see some return on investment from their investment in data. And virtually every organization has spent large amounts of money trying to get value from their data. And that's not always come to fruition. So now execs want to see some kind of return on that investment. And obviously with the current economic climate, cost cuts are coming and organizations want to slim down. So they want to make sure that they're getting the value from those data assets. And then finally, it's that the business needs data to underpin decision making. And we're increasingly seeing customers come to us who want to find data use cases that have some kind of competitive advantage. And we're now in a climate where organizations are going to fall behind if they don't have that right investment in data, and they can't use that data to get ahead of their competitors. So it's becoming really important to invest in that strong data foundation. And we're seeing lots of different challenges with the organizations that we speak to. The first is that there's a lack of a strong data foundation. So lots of organizations have invested in tactical solutions, or they've not invested at all in building a data platform. And that means that they don't have a good foundation to build on. So generally their data estate is either a collection of spreadsheets and Power BI data sets, or they have tactical solutions that have been put together with no real thought about the bigger, more strategic picture. The next is around poor data quality, and data quality is generally an afterthought when implementing systems, and it's something that hampers many data and AI programs because ultimately we need to put good data into AI models and analytical data models to get good results out. So not thinking about data quality and thinking about things like master data management can make or break that data or AI initiative. Because ultimately, if the business can't trust the results that are coming out of the system, then they're not going to use that data. Next is focusing on tech rather than business value. And many data and AI initiatives are driven by IT, and they're focused on implementing bleeding edge tech that's great fun for us as techies to get to grips with, but doesn't always deliver to the needs of the business. And data is really intrinsic to the running of the organization. So it's key that there's a big focus on the outcomes that the business are looking to achieve rather than focusing on the technology that's used to do it. Then it's about upskilling. So many of the tools and technologies that we implement as part of a data initiative are alien to the business. So if we don't have the plan in place to upskill them and bring them on that journey with us, then they won't be able to get that value from everything we're delivering. And our efforts to build that data platform will be pointless. Then it's about business engagement. So we need to work really closely with the users within the business, as they have that domain knowledge and they know what they need to perform their role. So if we see a lot of organizations that go off and spend 6 months implementing an AI model or delivering a report without engaging with the business, and that gets to results that don't align with their needs. So it's really key that the business is engaged from the start. And then finally, it's about providing the business doesn't have access to the right data at the right time. So if the users within the business can't find or access the data that they need, then they can't make use of it. So it's really essential for us to start considering the usability of our platform and almost think of it like an online shop or marketplace that aims to get the right data into the hands of the users at the point they need access to it. So now we'll move on to talking about the solution to some of those challenges that I've mentioned, which is aligning ourselves towards building out a data-driven culture within our organization. And generally, a data platform is a very technical undertaking, and we're really focused in on the technology elements of it. But there's lots of other elements that we need to consider that are on top of building out that scalable and secure platform that can ingest, transform, and serve that data. And those elements are things like enablement. So ensuring that the business understands what data is available within the platform and understands how that data can be used. So that's about ensuring that we've got things like a data catalog in place and we've got business glossaries so the business can understand what data exists, what the definitions of those data sets are, and also understands where that data has come from in terms of lineage. So they've got that real understanding of what the data is that they're looking at. Then it's about guardianship. So that's so obviously within a data platform, we're bringing in lots of really sensitive data. And particularly with things like AI models, we're starting to push that data off to other systems and we're starting to make decisions based on that data. So we need to make sure that we've got the right governance in place to ensure that we know where that sensitive data is being used, we know how it's being used, and we can then ensure that we're securing it appropriately. So it's really important that we've got those guardrails and we've got the right governance in place to allow that. And then finally, it's about the most important piece, which is the people. So if we don't have exec sponsorship and we're not aligning our data initiatives to some kind of business outcome, then we're never going to get the funding and we're never going to get the resource we need to make the project a success. So it's really key that we're aligning everything we do in a data platform to some kind of business outcome. And it's also really key that we're considering the change management element of the platform. So ensuring that we've got the right learning and development in place so the business can get value from the tools we're implementing, but also ensuring that we're considering that business change element to take the business on that journey so they understand what the platform is, what benefits it's going to bring to them, and they understand how to actually use it. So there's those key elements that always fall, that are the key parts that go into building that data platform. So essentially where we want to get to from a platform point of view is a point where we have a data platform in place, and that can allow us to take those business objectives so we understand what the business wants to achieve and where they want to get to. And then within our data platform, we're starting to understand what questions the business needs to answer to achieve those objectives, and also what actions they can take to influence the success of those objectives. And then from that, we can start to build out a suite of data products and data assets within that platform that enable the business to answer those questions and enable the business to know when to take those actions. But then it's also about layering on all of those other elements that I mentioned. So ensuring that we've got the right training, ensuring that we've got the right learning in place, and ensuring we've got the right governance and enablement so they can actually get that value from the data. And if we do all of that and they've got access to the right data at the right time, then they can start to take those decisions from the data sets and start to take those actions to steer the business in the right direction to achieve its objectives. So it's about building that platform that can serve the data that the business needs, and enabling that platform to actually provide some value and be aligned to those business objectives, so that we get that investment and we ensure that everything we do as a data team is aligned to some kind of business outcome. So one of the ways that we can help actually align ourselves to those business outcomes is to apply product thinking to the data that we're delivering. And essentially where we want to get to is a point where we can deliver valuable and usable data to the business in a rapid and repeatable way. And generally there's a few challenges to doing that, and they fall into the challenges that I mentioned in one of the earlier slides. But they generally fall into 3 different buckets, and they're the same across all IT projects. And those buckets are people, process, and technology. So for any project to be a success, we need to engage the right people and keep them engaged so that they adopt what we're delivering. We also need to ensure that we've got the right processes in place, both so our users can access what we're delivering, but also to ensure that we're applying the right level of governance so they can do it in a safe way. And then finally, we need to ensure we're implementing the right technology, not because it's going to bolster our CVs or give us something new to play with as developers, but because it's the technology that's going to enable us to deliver that value quickly and enable the business to extract value from what we're delivering. So in a data context, one of the things that we can do to enable us to do that is to apply product thinking to data. So essentially what we're trying to do is get to a point where we can take our raw data that's coming from lots of different systems, and that could be batch data that's coming once daily or multiple times per day, or it could be streaming data that's coming at us in real time. And we want to package that up into a data product that contains all of the infrastructure and code to enable us to extract value from that data, as well as the data itself that's going to deliver that value, and the metadata that's going to describe what it is and how it can be used so that the business can understand how best to use it. And that data product could be something as simple as a table of data that we've generated, or it could be a report, or it could be a machine learning model. So it's something that's related to data and is going to deliver some kind of value. And that data product aligns to a set of governance standards, and those governance standards enable us to tick all of the boxes we need to ensure that we're aligned to all of those 4 elements that form a part of a data culture. So it's ensuring that we've got the right elements in place to make that product a success. And then with that data product, we want to derive some kind of business value from it. So that could be in the form of decisions or actions. So this is all about basically packaging up that data into a unit of value so that the business can actually do something with it that's going to deliver some kind of value. And through that process, we're trying to abstract away as much of the technology and as much of the sort of techie elements that go into delivering that data to the business. So in order to be successful in rolling out those data products, we need to make sure that we've got the right governance and standards in place so that we can get that value from the data. And at Telefonica Tech, we've got a set of standards that we use as a baseline and tailor to each customer. So they cover 8 key areas, and they basically aim to ensure that we're covering all of those elements that feed into creating a data culture. And each data product can be rated against a set of criteria so that we can start to get an understanding of each product and what its maturity level is and how ready it is for the business to start getting that value from it. And those standards fall into a few different areas. So they include things like ensuring that we've got a data product owner. So that's somebody that's from the business community and can be the champion for that data product and ensure that it's aligned to those governance standards, but also have that vision of where they want to go and what they want to achieve with it. We also need to ensure that it's discoverable. So if the business don't know it exists or where to find it or how to get access to it, then they're never going to be able to use it. So we need to ensure that it exists in a catalog or marketplace and the business have that easy access to it and they know what it is, how it can be used, and what the use cases are for it. We also need to ensure that it meets a set of quality standards. So ensuring that we understand the quality of the data within that product and ensuring that that's published and is clearly measurable, so that the business know that they can trust the data within it, and they know that's reliable data that they can use to make those decisions. And then we need to make sure that it's actually valuable, so it's tied to some kind of business outcome and is actually being used by the users within our business community. And to do that, we need to start collecting data on how it's being used and what outcomes it's driving, so that we can then use that to gather feedback and understand how we develop it going forwards, which is where the plan comes in, which is about ensuring we take that feedback from the business and look at how it's being used, and we start to build a roadmap and a process to develop and continuously improve it going forwards. So it's all about having that really close alignment with the business and that ownership within the business. So it's about empowering the business to take their data and derive some value from it. So rather than us driving it as an IT initiative, we're actually getting the business is getting some value from it, and they understand what outcomes it's driving. So the next section is around how we actually get started with data products. And to do that, we first need to understand, we first need to identify a use case. So to do that, we need to start by understanding what the key business priorities are and get an understanding of where the business is wanting to go. And from that, we can then start to understand what the measures of success are for those objectives. So what are the kind of things that will tell the business if they're being successful in that specific area? And from that, we can start to understand what the key levers are that the business can move to influence those measures of success. And that will in turn allow us to identify what data products we need to build to enable those insights to be gained. And on this slide, I've just got an example of how this could work in a manufacturing industry. So as a business, we might say that our objective is to increase our gross margin by improving efficiency and cost management. And some of the ways that the business can do that are to reduce the raw material costs by 10%. So if they reduce those costs, then that's going to increase their margin. And to reduce those costs, they can look at things like purchasing, so understanding how we buy things from suppliers and looking at if there's better methods we can use to purchase those products, if say we purchase them in bulk or came up with a different deal. We can also start to look at our contracts with suppliers, so looking at whether there's discounts over certain volumes, or looking at if we can negotiate better deals with them to get those materials at a lower cost. And then there's also looking at how we actually build our products. So looking at things like our bill of materials, so we can understand what raw materials go into making our products and start to optimize that and look at how we can change how those products are being made. Another area we can look at is increasing the production of our high margin items by 5%. So if we make more of those high margin items, that's going to increase our gross margin and is going to improve our efficiency. And to do that, we can look at things like our bill of materials, so refining what materials go into those items and looking at what materials are lower cost to us and will provide more profit. We can also start to look at optimizing our orders, so whether that's from a material point of view, looking at how we forecast how much materials used so that we can decrease the cost and increase our margin, or looking at what the demand is like for some of those high margin items and looking at how we can build more of them to account for that demand and sell more of those items. And then the final item is looking at how we reduce our distribution costs. So obviously, if we reduce our costs to deliver our products, then that's going to increase our margin. And to do that, we can look at optimizing those orders. So looking at what orders are coming in and ensuring that we've got the right distribution process in place to account for those orders and looking at how we optimize that process. But we could also look at things like how we our wider supply chain and look at how we optimize that. So based on that single objective, there's lots of data products that we can spin off from that. So there's lots of different subject areas and lots of different areas of the business we can start to dive into and start to collect data from to help us to move that objective forward. But obviously, as a data team, we've got limited resources, so we need to look at doing some kind of prioritization to understand where we put our focus first. And to do that, we like to look at the impact of each of those data products that we're looking to build, but also the effort that's involved in building them. So we plot that on a matrix that looks at that's impact versus effort. And the area that we want to be focusing on is those quick wins. So it's the things that are high impact and low effort. So they're going to deliver the most impact to the business as quickly as possible. And to start to understand what that business impact is, we can start to reframe those data products and start to understand what the actual wider impact of them is. So as an example, if I had a full view of my bill of materials, then I could look to optimize material use and identify cost saving opportunities. If you had a view of what's being spent with each supplier, then you can negotiate better pricing and terms to reduce those raw material costs. And if you could get an end-to-end view of your distribution network, then you can ensure that you're utilizing supply chain resources as efficiently as possible. So if we reframe those data products and look at what the actual business outcome of them is, that allows us to start prioritizing them. And for each of these outcomes, we can start to attach them to some kind of monetary value. So understanding the bill of materials can increase our gross margin. Understanding what we're spending with our suppliers can give us a saving in raw material costs. And then looking at our distribution network can allow us to reduce those distribution costs. So we can start to understand what the actual monetary value of those data products is and start to understand what kind of impact they're going to have. And that then allows us to plot those on a matrix and start to get that idea of the priority. So based on this, our initial focus might be, say, the supplier data product, as that's what we've identified as high impact but low effort. And with this, we can start to deliver that value to the business incrementally. So we can start to build out that process to identify those use cases, do a quick experiment to understand how feasible they are, and then build that solution, test it, and deploy it to production, and then monitor it and start to gather that feedback. So as a data team, we start to do that really rapid iteration and work in that agile way so that we're delivering these data products out to the business and we're delivering that value to them as quickly as possible. So in terms of how we actually deliver that solution, generally we'd be doing that through the use of a data platform. And within that data platform, we'd be aligning it to a medallion architecture. And that basically categorizes data into 3 different buckets. So the first is our bronze bucket, which is our copy of the source data. Then we've got our silver bucket, which is where we've done some basic cleansing on that data and got it into a standardized format, so it's easy for us to query. And then we've got our gold data, which is where that data that's going to drive that business value sits. And essentially what we're looking to do is build out a set of data products that align to each of those layers of the medallion architecture. So we're starting to build out data products based on our source data, which is suited to those analysts and data scientists and data engineers, so they can start to get some value from that data and start to build things like machine learning models to predict what's going to happen based on historical patterns. But then we can also start to build out our derived data products, which are where we're looking to build stuff that's really reusable and is built in such a way that the business can get some value from it and can start to use that data to make decisions. And that's usable for our analysts who are building out those reports and building out those semantic models, but also our data scientists who need some data that's been curated and combined into and had some transformation applied to it. And then finally, we have our consumer aligned data products, which are where the business is going to be sitting. And generally, these are where the business is going to be doing that slicing and dicing of data and starting to understand those patterns that have happened historically and starting to build their own reports and build their own understanding of what's going on in the business. And ultimately, this is where they're going to start making those decisions. And these solutions can be built in tools such as Fabric. So this is just a standard view of the medallion architecture in Fabric, which I won't dive into too much detail on. But ultimately, where we're trying to get to is a point where we've got those data products, they're delivering some kind of value to the business, and they're built in a way that they can be versatile and used for lots of different use cases. We're also looking to build them so that they're high quality. So we've got that trusted data that the business can use to drive those decisions and know that that data is 100% correct. And then we also want to deliver that great user experience. So the users aren't reliant on us as a data team to provide those insights to them. They can access that data themselves and can start to use that data to drive those decisions and start to take those actions. And essentially where we're trying to get to is a point where we're building those data products that could be focused on areas such as our bill of materials, our suppliers, or our profitability. And we can start to combine those products together and get that overall view of the business and start to understand how all of those entities within the business are linked together. And then from that, we can start to answer lots of questions. So whether we're looking at it from an analytical point of view and wanting to understand what suppliers do I have the most exposure to, or which components we're most reliant on. So starting to answer those questions about what's happened historically. Or we could be looking to answer, looking at some of those AI use cases. So looking at how we can predict what's going to happen in the future. So that could be looking at which suppliers are the most riskiest based on how much we're spending with them, but also external data like their credit ratings or other factors, or starting to understand how we can expand our reach within customers. So looking at which customers we can approach about similar products. So it's given us that data that can make those predictions about what's going to happen in the future and making those predictions about what the next best action to take is. But then also using that data to feed into our applications and feed into our workflows. So we're essentially building that platform that is linking all of our data together, where we know we've got that high quality data and we've got that data that's available for lots of different use cases and can be used to drive lots of different value within our business. So that's all we've got time for on today's session. So in terms of the next steps, as Telefonica Tech, we work with lots of customers to help them on their data journey, from understanding what they can do with data as an organization and where data is going to bring the most value, through to delivering the data platform and including tools such as CluedIn to improve the quality of that data within the platform and allow them to get to that single view of their organization so they can start to get that true value from the data, through to helping with the softer elements and helping to embed the data platform in the business and working with the business to get that true value from the platform. So off the back of this session, we're able to offer a 1 hour briefing around how to get started with your data strategy. So we can start to understand what your objectives are as a business and start to have those conversations around where data can benefit you. But that's all we've got time for in today's session. So I'll hand it back to Samuel.
Thank you for that, Ben. Really insightful. And just like Ben mentioned, feel free to get in touch directly to Telefonica through Ben himself or any of the details that you see in here on the slide. But yeah, that's like Ben mentioned, that's all we have time for today. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the sessions. Really appreciate it. Bye, everyone.